welcome back to the last video for this week of February Friday. I currently am also in a hotel room, hence the towels and the mirror. But of course, it's the only place in the hotel room that we have, at least, that has good lighting. And of course, for anyone wondering what particular hotel I'm in, like what brand, I am currently in a Super 8. No shade to them, of course, but in case you were wondering. And so yeah. So in this case, we're going to be discussing a woman out of California who was actually sentenced to death row and was actually executed in death row. And as I know of, there are only 4 women in the state of California as of the time of this video, which is June 8th, 2023, that have been executed in the state of California. So obviously what she done has been pretty bad to be only one of 4 women. And so with that being said, let's get straight into the video.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares, standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
So Barbara Elaine Ford was born on June 23rd, 1923. Her mother, Hortense, at least that's how I've seen it pronounced, was an immigrant from Portugal and was a prostitute as a teenager. So obviously, not a great upbringing. Her mother got married eventually and changed her last name, her maiden last name and her children's last name to Wood. And then in 1925, Barbara would have a sister named Claire, and in 1930, a brother named Joseph. And so that year, still being 1930, would be the year that their father had died after Joseph was born. Doesn't say how soon after he was born, but apparently he died after Joseph was born. And so when she was 2, her mother was arrested for prostitution. And apparently Barbara would of course be sent to foster care. Where Claire and Joseph were sent to, I don't even know, because their father's dead. So probably with his relatives, but of course this story is not about the siblings, it's about Barbara. So I guess they didn't really pay attention to where the siblings got sent to. And so while Barbara is in foster care, she says she suffered physical abuse. Hortense, the mother, would get released at age 21. She refused to take Barbara back, which, as you can imagine, is very traumatizing for your own mother to not even want to take you back. She would get taken care of by extended family and strangers. And she apparently had run away from these homes multiple times to return back to her mother, because that is her mother. But her mother would keep turning her away. So then, of course, she grows up. She becomes a teenager. She gets arrested for vagrancy. And it said that she was also prostituting during her teen years as well. So then she gets sent to the same reform school as her mother. So then after being arrested, she marries a guardman by the name of Harry while studying business at a college. He was born October 3rd, 1913. The two would split 3 years later, and Harry had got custody of their 2 kids. So the 3 years they were married, they had 2 kids together. So she would marry 2 more times, but struggled to be a traditional wife, so she got divorced twice again. So she's divorced 3 times at this point. And so Barbara would live on working as a prostitute during World War II and had a heroin addiction. She was arrested at the age of 22 for this. She began working at a brothel and started gambling and drugs, and she was referred to as a seagull, which is basically a group of prostitutes hanging around basically any military base during World War II. She actually would be arrested for giving fake alibis to 2 friends by the name of Mark Monroe and Thomas. He winds up serving a year in jail. After she got out, she moved to Reno, Nevada, and worked as a waitress in a hospital. And I guess she decided that living the good life wasn't good enough for her, and so then she soon got on a bus to LA to return her old ways. So then she would meet a Harry Graham, which is where she got the name Graham from, as everyone knows her. And he was a bartender at a bar that she was a regular at in 1953. Some sources say he was a customer, others say he was a bartender, but they met through a bar So then they have a son named Tommy. So Barbara has 3 children at this point. So then Henry had addiction problems and was a criminal, sadly. And so one day she would meet Jack Santos and Emmett Perkins through Henry. Emmett was born on October 8th, 1908. It was said that she had an affair with Perkins. Perkins was planning a robbery based off a rumor of a woman named Mabel Monahan having a lot of money in a safe in her house. And so Mabel was born in 1888, and she was married to a George who died in 1940. Hence, Mabel is a widow, and she's 64, I think, when the murder actually happens. And so Mabel had a daughter named Iris who had married this man named Tudor. And so Tudor had been involved in some shady business as to how he got, because apparently he had like a lot of money, and so I believe he did like gambling and other things, basically some shady things to like get this money. And so Iris and Tudor had divorced, and she got to keep the house. However, when Iris remarried, Mabel basically was gifted the house by Iris. And so Barbara would be used as a decoy. So, because she's not going to open the house with like 3 grown men, because she's a widow living by herself, she ain't got a man in the house. It was said she had a dog, but, so basically we're going to send Barbara in. It's kind of make it look like it's just Barbara, she's in distress, she needs help, she's going to feel bad because it's a young, attractive lady. So that's where Barbara comes into the picture. So on March 8th, 1953, Barbara had dinner with Perkins, Jack, and Baxter Shorter, who was the safe keeper, basically the person that broke into the safes back then. The following night, Mabel would actually receive, the following night, so March 9th, Mabel will receive a visit from Barbara, who will be asking to use her phone, claiming that her car broke down. Remember, this is the lie to get into the house. And so then, of course, Jack, Emmett, Perkins, whatever you want to call him, and another man named John True would apparently be hiding behind a corner. Mabel opens the door after some hesitation, and so then once inside, Barbara had apparently pistol whipped Mabel, apparently letting out her anger for her mother out on Mabel. So then, of course, Perkins and Jack look for the alleged safe, because you know why else are we here? And so then Barbara had apparently stopped temporarily. Mabel wasn't dead yet, and she was screaming. So Barbara came in with a pillowcase to suffocate Mabel. Jack had a ripped bed sheet. It was using it to strangle Mabel. So then, of course, Baxter, the person that's supposed to bring it to the safe, he hears all these noises. He comes in. Baxter was born on January 9th, 1909. He would say that Mabel needed help, and this wasn't part of the plan. So Baxter was pretty much the only decent person in this whole scenario. And so after not finding a safe, the gang decides to leave. Before heading out, Baxter grabs one of Mabel's mail so he can give an address so that Mabel can receive medical attention before she does die. Well, he was trying to help. So then he went to a phone booth and called it in. However, by the time he got to a phone booth, apparently he was in LA, and the murder happened in Burbank, which is only 20 minutes away, but this is the 50s. So the dispatcher did not know this is in Burbank. So apparently there was no address such as this in LA. So it said that no police pretty much was sent out. And so then by the time Mabel is found, it's 2 days later, she's already dead, and her gardener had came back for his check, and he's the one who found the body. Then the gang had later found out that apparently $15,000 was stuffed in her purse, right by where her body was. Other sources say 600, other sources say like 400, and there was some stuff in her closet. Either way, places where you more than likely would look if you're trying to steal money from someone, they did not look, pretty much. And so somehow a tip would come in with Baxter's name. I guess maybe he told someone he was involved. Baxter would be willing to give up the names of everybody if he got immunity, which, you know, same. However, Baxter would be last be seen alive by his wife Clara, being forced into a car driven by Barbara. And so he nor his remains have ever been found. And so he was legally declared dead 7 years later. So of course it is assumed at this point they killed him. So within days, the whole gang was arrested because before they even killed him, he had a chance to tell pretty much everything. And so Barbara would offer a man $25,000 to provide a fake alibi for her to say that he was her boyfriend and they were together the nights of the murder. This man that she had asked turned out to be a undercover cop. John True, who was one of the men apparently involved, he would agree to testify against the gang for immunity. And so police decided to hide him away with 24/7 protection, so that way what happened to Baxter, turning on the gang and then mysteriously wind up dead, or is presumed dead, that would happen to John again. So then, of course, everyone is found guilty of second-degree murder and is sentenced to death, as usual in the 50s. So then, on June 2nd, 1955, Barbara was taken to a San Quentin to await execution, and her last meal was a milkshake and something else. And then the next day, so June 3rd, she was to be executed by gas chamber. On this day, she was given a stay of 45 minutes, rescheduling the execution to take place at 11:30 instead of 10:45. And her original time was 10 a.m. And Barbara had apparently complained to say that she was ready to go at 10 a.m. So, like, why are we holding? And when she finally did make it to the chair, she would request for a blindfold. And apparently, out of everyone that's been executed so far in the United States, she is the only person that's ever requested to do this. She was declared dead at 11:42. because they did put her in the gas chamber. And her final words are said to be, "Good people are always so sure that they're right." And so then Jack and Emmett were apparently executed that day side by side. A movie came out in 1958, so only 3 years later, titled "I Want to Live," starring Susan Hayward, and apparently she even won an Oscar for that. She did pretty good. And then a remake came out in 1983. And so, of course, Hortense, the mother, she eventually died on August 14th, 1989. And then Harry, her husband at the time she passed away, died on October 6th, 1993. And so, of course, that is all we know of the case of Barbara Graham. At least the people that were involved in the case, including Barbara, her co-conspirators, and Mabel herself. And so, if you have any similar cases you want to recommend, definitely let me know, and I'll see you with the next one. Bye.
Will you regret everything that you did, that you said? I don't think you understand what you're doing, and my heart's black and blue from the bruising. I feel like when I'm with you I'm losing.